Defender of the Crown is a game released and published by this guy.
I'm the creator of Ultra games for Nintendo.
In the year of our Lord, 1989. DOC is one of those oddities on the system, mainly as it had its roots in PC-based systems. It was originally released in 1986 for the Amiga, before being ported to a plethora of systems the following year, and shit, even got ports more recently on things like the GBA systems, and more recently the iOS platform. When it was released, it was generally met with glowing reviews and praise, but nowadays I think it was nothing more than, oh, look at those graphics. In fact, the game was released before all intended ideas could be fully implemented. Things like more in-depth strategy, more locations, and cooler visual things. Shit like flaming fireballs for the catapult, for example. Some of these elements would be implemented in later releases, including the before-mentioned more in-depth strategy, but that's another story. I think games should benefit being released as intended myself, but maybe that's just me. The game was originally developed and designed by a Mr. Who Gives a Fuck, and was the very first ever game published by Cinemaware, who, like other PC-based companies like Beam Software, for example, wanted to get their stuff on home consoles, often for no other reason than piracy was an issue that greatly affected their bottom line on PC platforms.
What the hell is that shit?
Cinemaware also developed another Amiga PC-based game called The Rocket Ranger, and also did the original Three Stooges game that was later somewhat famously ported by Beam. Though again, these games based in PC roots often had limitations and had to be downgraded significantly in the graphics department, among other things including sound or music, and sometimes even being censored to better fit Nintendo of America's standards of the time. Regardless, again, these games are sort of an oddity subgroup of the NES library that I'll just call PC to NES conversions. Games like Pirates or Silent Surface, which were both later converted by Rare and published by Ultra, or games like Carmen Sandiego or King's Quest V, which were converted and published by Konami. Hey, I think I'm noticing a trend here, but maybe it's just me. So Defender of the Crown on the NES is a strategy-based game, but for me, other than maybe a few select titles like North and South, Desert Command, or Mule, the NES is not a system where strategy games thrived. Games like the often overly complicated Koei games, which I can never get the hang of, and even to a hardcore NES fan like myself, playing them feels more like Chinese water torture these days. And even other PC strategy subgenres like Dungeon Crawlers simply didn't really work on the NES. At least they didn't do anything for me, but it was pretty obvious, even back then, we may not be playing any definitive versions here. Now, I guess I say DOC is a bit more accessible than some of those before-mentioned titles, but still, I never really got it figured out, and it really comes down to the lack of desire to. NES for me is platformers and kick-ass side-scrollers for the most part. A game like this can take a hike. Now don't get me wrong, the game is not devoid of positives. The idea of being a conqueror of sorts, taking over the map and doing shit like sword fights, castle takeovers, and knocking motherfuckers off their horses and knocking their block-offs is pretty appealing on paper, and using my imagination, this shit is pretty violent, which I like. I do dig the setting and location, and I wish more games had this medieval sort of thing going on. I'm not sure if it's just outdated, but again, there is a bit of a learning curve that I never really fully got, but I'll give it another go. So there's 6 Saxton Lords, but only 4 to pick from. While in the game, the rest are considered allies, often letting you pass through their territories freely and whatnot. They can stab you in the back, and vice versa. But regardless, it's blue versus red, and you want to make the map blue to win. It sort of plays out a lot like a board game. Make a move, and then the in-game time will advance. Some stuff may move around, and you make some income based on land you've conquered. You move, the computer moves until something happens, and eventually the game ends. The oddest thing for me was getting used to the menus. There's various actions you can do, and to go back to the root menu, you click back on the box to go back. Maybe A for action and B for back would have been nice, but whatever, once you know how it works, it's... The biggest problem with the menus is this fucking sword. It covers the whole word over whatever you're selecting. Nice. I don't think I need to explain why that's a huge pain in the dick. Another handy thing worth noting on this map is View Map. This lets you select territories to see what's what and give you an idea of what you're facing if you want to move your army around, and give you some general info. Another huge pain in the dick is that you have your own castle that often needs its own army to protect it. So guys in the garrison can be important if you're going to travel too far outside your castle. But still, you're also going to need an army for travel, but without folks at home, the game can suddenly end. In fact, this game can suddenly end a number of ways, but I guess that's all part of its appeal, design, and strategy. Whether it leaves you with that wanna try again feeling or not will depend on if you have anything else you'd rather be playing, but I suppose it's okay to go a few games, give it a couple tries. So again, there's these 4 characters to pick from. Apparently they all have different stats, and I guess leadership is important, but it can be raised and earned through winning tournaments. Wilford is the easiest to win with. I know this. Why? Well, that's what the manual says. So I guess who you pick sort of doubles as a difficulty setting, but maybe not. I don't know. Again, this game's always been sort of confusing, so I recommend you find or study the manual if you're going to play this thing. So you pick your dude, often based off your favorite sexual innuendo or sexual personality, I guess. I often choose longsword as I have an issue with the girth of my sword, so it makes me feel better to have a big one. But, you know, you can also pick Cedric. And here's the map. One style of play I haven't really done much of is staying on this map and playing more from the map, simply selecting all the shit, seeing what's what, etc. As the game is beatable without doing tournaments or raids, something a lot of people tend to go for first. And I mean, who can blame them? People often go raiding or do tournaments because, hey, most want some action and don't want to hang out on this map. I can't blame them. Still, even playing more map-based, other allies may call for a tournament, or people may need saving, or you may get raided yourself, so the before mentioned scenarios may still go down even if you're not actively seeking out any fun. Now, Robin of Locksley, who, let's just call him Robin Hood, I mean, who else dresses in green and hangs out in Sherwood Forest, you know what I'm saying? So Robin Hood is in the game and he resides in Sherwood Forest. You can use him 3 times, though I swear I've used him more times on longer games. Are you fucking lying to me, book? But regardless, you can almost think of him as a power-up. If you go to the forest on your turn, he'll say, "What's up?" and he'll provide his army of merry men to aid you in your quest, which can make things go easier or faster, and you may end up the victor with less casualties or expenses. Wow, hey, I kinda like that. Cut those fucking throats.
It's like cutting warm butter.
I protest. I am not a merry man.
So as far as scenarios or scenes that play out, there's these swordplay things. Depending on your chosen character and who you're up against, I guess determines your chances and affects your initial health bar. I'm not really sure, but like all scenarios, I guess I'll call them, whether it's defensively or offensively, these scenarios all play out the same. Kill 3 dudes outside and 1 dude inside. I used to think you had to make it to the door here or the end of the room inside, but no, that's not the case. Just defeat the 4 guys and you win. The swordplay is slow and not very exciting. You move this pencil stick of a dick around, attacking with the A button. I guess a good way to approach this is stick and move, move as much as possible. Going backwards helps. If you can stab them while they're walking towards you, or better yet away from you, you can usually get the jump on them. Something that's overlooked, as this game has kind of a little Way of the Warrior syndrome going on, is you can pull off an attack without constantly hitting the buttons. Just hold A down, flutter about with the D-pad, and you'll keep attacking, saving you from button mashing. I guess it's not the ideal way to play, but I've gotten quite a few victories attacking for a while with the A button held down, and you can still just let off the button if you want to do some sweet foot maneuvering.
But I somehow, someway, keep coming up with funky ass shit, like every single day.
So if this is a raid and you're victorious, you usually get treasure or gold to buy shit with.
Every other block is a street. You always tell it creep.
Or often you may get some hello. So yeah, you may get some pussy. And what the hell? Are we like married now? Are we like a thing now? How come every time I save a bitch they gotta get all attached to shit? Shit, baby, I got a longsword that's too much for one wrench to handle. I mean, I'm a free man, baby, so don't get too attached, okay? I mean, I'm a real piece of shit. I'll break your fucking heart. I got bastards out there, you know. She doesn't care. She's a good lady. She sticks by my side. Now, I don't know if having this formal damsel in distress is good for your leadership rating or stats. In fact, the game's always going on about fame and stats and leadership, but nowhere on the screen is there something telling you what's up. I mean, I sort of feel it's lacking there. I mean, you gotta have a screen with some levels, you know, some nerd stats. Nerds like numbers. Where the fuck are they? Then, of course, there's the most favorite scenario of them all, the tournaments, where you joust and get into it with the other guy. Now, the goal is to defeat 3 of these dudes in a row. So yeah, you ride a horse, knock off a dude, or don't, and then battle, and you gotta do it 3 times. But hey, at least it's fun, right?
That's right.
Now, for years, I always thought I was this horse. Why the fuck wouldn't you? I mean, maybe I'm more left brain based or something, and it's just me. I'm more comfortable being on the left side and bottom going right, I guess. But again, I always thought I was this dude. I mean, after the initial cutscene, you're obviously on the right side. Isn't that this dude's perspective? Am I wrong? So I think the camera angles suffer a bit from a continuity issue here, but hey, whatever. At least I know I'm this guy now because, you know, he's blue. You see, he's blue. So aim your stick towards the shield and flip a coin. I once aimed and hit the horse's face and got shamed. I mean, it was really fucking embarrassing to be disqualified in front of all those people. So don't do that. Save yourself the embarrassment. This is Nintendo after all, and no animals were ever depicted being abused in these games. So really don't do that. Because shit, they took all my money, and I go home to an empty castle. Where's my army? Dude, this seems a little excessive. Fuck that horse. Fuck that horse, cut his head off, and have some hamburgers. Now, another part of winning these, again, are your character stats, which I guess affect the speed at which your jousting stick can move, and maybe your overall health. I'm not really sure. If you get knocked down, you obviously start with less life, but whatever, this is a two-way street. So what's your opponent's stats? Might be good to know when you choose a guy to duel with, right? So, where the fuck are they? Oh, well, when you were on the map screen, you could have checked and maybe seen Jeffrey or other appropriately medieval named motherfuckers' skills then. Or when you first picked your character, you could have remembered who the joustiest jousters of the land was. What the fuck? Could they really not tell you up front? I mean, is this part of what makes it a strategic game? Do I have to write it down? You know what, fuck it, just pick the wimpiest name you dislike the most and hope for the best, as I'm Mr. Longsword here, so I pretty much have no business jousting in the first place. In fact, this guy's really not living up to his name. Stick with someone else, like Ivanhoe, or Cedric. Cedric, he doesn't even need the joust. He's already earned his leadership skills. I hear he's got over 15 bastards running around the land, spreading his strong swordplay genes. When it comes to the Morningstar battle, stick and move. Again, holding B will raise up your shield. Press A and up to go for the head, and A and down for the lower extremities region. Come out the victor and your opponent will bow down and suck your dick in front of everyone.
Man, I'll suck your dick.
You know, you don't have to do that. I got 2 more battles here, okay? I do a little bit more better with my man juice all up in my balls still, you know? So just back the fuck up, okay? We can do this shit later. So again, beat this and your leadership will go up. Or so I hear. Again, there's no easily accessible stat screen with nerd numbers and shit that I usually like. But, you know, I'll just take the word on the street. He's a leader. He won the thing. His leadership skills up.
Vote for Longsword. He's got a big dick.
You should have seen the load he put all over that guy's fucking
It
face.
was up his ear, up his nose, all over the place. It was like a whole bottle of glue, man. Elmer's glue.
He's got a big dick.
Battles on the map or after attacking castles come down to the size of your army, at least for the most part, and you just watch it play out. Unlike turn-based RPGs, as soon as you see the screen, the battle's already begun. Each guy represents 10 or so dudes in your army, and there's some options, I guess. Fierce attack is good if your numbers are good, and the manual states options like outflank is good for guys with a lower leadership rating or less men. And you can also do things like bombard if you have catapults, or if you're getting slaughtered, consider a retreat, which will save you some casualties, but again, your leadership rating might go down. God forbid. But regardless, it's pretty fun, you know, just sitting there watching this random battle go down. You just never know what's gonna happen, I mean.
And that finger is so aggressive.
Well, then maybe I should just cut it off, not gesticulate. You know, not be a human. Would you like that?
Shut your fucking mouth! No problem, Charlie. Shut the fuck up, you cunt!
Back to your corners.
Shut it!
Real nail-biting stuff. If your castle is attacked, you gotta take down the archers climbing your castle wall. Your stock army at home base, I guess, equates to your life bar. You gotta move fast as shit or you're gonna get pummeled. And you gotta aim. Try not to miss. Maybe my guy has low archer skills, I don't know, but it's kinda stressful to play out as these can end the game and all your hard work pretty quick if you're not on your toes. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, honing your archery skills and aiming can come in handy later for catapults. So make sure you have a catapult in your army and grab as much men as you can and go out and take over some castles. A good strategy is throwing some diseases over the wall first to get the enemy all sick and shit. It's a bit of a bitch move, but hey, it's war. Then you gotta knock down the wall.
Today the blood of many a valiant knight shall be avenged. We shall not stop our fight till each one of you lies dead.
Then watch the battle commence, rinse and repeat, all that sort of stuff until the map goes all red and you lose, or the map goes all blue and you'd win. And then you get to do it all over again. It was grueling to learn just to get to my half-ass skill level. Again, there's not really much more to see. I mean, once in a while some random shit will happen like, hey, you lost half your gold, or hey, Robin gives you some gold. Okay, well that's nice, but you know, sorry, that don't impress me much.
That don't impress me much. Give it all, yeah, I think you're alright. But that won't keep me wanting to live another night. The fuck?
The raiding stages and tournaments are pretty bland, but compared to other scenarios, at least they aren't as frustrating. Like these battles at the wall can be pretty unforgiving and the controls just suck. I mean, a crosshair would have maybe been nice, but maybe that wasn't invented yet, or maybe that's one of those things they wanted to add to the game before it shipped, who knows, but, you know, it would have been nice. And sieging castles takes a little more effort than most will have the desire to deal with, as it took me many games to get a feel for it. Really listen for the right amount of clicks, and maybe you can one day knock down this wall efficiently. Unfortunately, once I got it down, I got my ass kicked. But you know, it was worth it. Maybe I'm really no good at these strategy games, but again, Defender of the Crown was always one of those games I didn't fully grasp back in the day, and like a lot of multi-genre sort of games, it doesn't really all come together right now over me. And regardless of the version, whether it be the original Amiga, the Apple II, DOS, Nintendo Entertainment System, Atari ST, ZX Spectrum, Amstrad, CPC, Commodore 64, Macintosh, blah blah blah, and later the CDI and even Game Boy Advance in 2002, I don't think any of those versions would really change my view on it. I mean, I haven't played all those versions, but I mean, looking at them, same shit, different day, but maybe I'm missing something. I mean, why get so many re-releases on stuff like the CDI? Actually, considering the legacy of the CDI, I would probably actually recommend that version if you have one of those things, but that's not saying much.
You cowardly cur. As you run like an old woman, the enemy's stronghold.
You have chosen wisely, my lord. The brave Saxons will rally to my standard.
Forest, you are greeted by your old friend, Robin of Locksley. Many years have passed since you served with Robin and his men, but disastrous...
Shut up.
So in conclusion, I get that the setting is cool, and again, it's not the most shitty game I've ever played, far from it, and I definitely see how it's influential, you know, with its setting and the different gameplays and such. Oh, look at those graphics! And to its credit, many games took what it had to offer and ran with it, and that makes sense, but it doesn't change the fact that DOC in itself is a pretty lackluster experience. So I have no idea why it wouldn't die, other than maybe make a quick buck here and there. I mean, to me, that's what iOS often seems to be about, you know, making a quick buck. I mean, some dipshit company ported it to the iPad recently, and you think that'd be the version to play, but it has like no touch support. I mean, you can move the cursor with your finger, sure, but you still have to play it just like the almost 30-year-old version, which to me seems incredibly lazy, as other games from this era were given the full touch support treatment and made all the more better for it. I mean, love or hate this game, I think a little more respect and care should have been taken to better preserve its history and legacy, but as usual, I can only speculate as to why decisions like this are made. What the fuck is taking so long? Okay, well, what does that mean? What do you mean touch support? For the iPad? Listen, it's an Amiga emulator running on the iPad. That's it. We don't need to change the goddamn motherfucking thing. And we got Cinemaware's trust, so now we just need to make this 30-year-old bitch work on this modern shit. It shouldn't take a rocket scientist more than a few hours to make it work. I know you're not a fucking rocket scientist. It's a figure of speech, you fucking prick. Yep, loading screens and all. No, we don't need to appeal to some new hip geeks. Hipsters won't care about dragging a mouse around with their fingers. It's not your job to be creative. I don't fucking pay you to be creative. You're no Jimmy fucking Hopper. I will fucking crack your fucking skull and fuck you with my fucking toe. Oh yeah, big fucking dude. You couldn't fucking swallow. But you can't handle the cake. The cake is not a lie. No, it's not. No, maybe. Listen, this is targeted to old men who remember the fucking thing and douchebags who like to buy digital games and play them for 5 fucking minutes and then move the fuck on. End of fucking story. Alright, call me back. So GPA ports and remakes for the PC came, but in 2003, Robin Hood, Defender of the Crown came along for the original green box. Huh, yeah, Robin Hood, he was more popular than ever in 2003. Get the fuck out of here. That's not even good brand recognition. I mean, no kid's 6th console generation would even make the connection that this was based off a classic game. Now, sure, it might be a good game. I'll leave that to more qualified reviewers to review that. And maybe I'm an asshole for judging a book by its cover, but Robin Hood, Defender of the Crown... No thanks, man. In fact, I'm not playing any Robin Hood games if they ever make another one, unless you can knock out some motherfuckers with a dead deer slapped to your back. Now that's something I want in my modern gaming experiences. That's gangsta. In conclusion, as far as Defender of the Crown, the original was way ahead of its time, and it was one of the first cinematic games ever, as Cinemaware's whole mantra really was trying to convey a whole movie-esque feel throughout their video games. But the thing about being way ahead of your time sometimes also means you're destined to age the worst. I mean, yes, this was crazy impressive for 1986 if you really sit and think about it, but we still play older, earlier games like Pac-Man and Space Invaders or the original Mario Brothers simply because they aged better and are still fun to play. So other than nostalgia value for a select very few, there's very little reason to go back to this game. And this NES port is nothing many people are even going to be able to get into. It's simply a dinosaur. And yes, I know that's ironic because we're talking about the fucking Nintendo Entertainment System here, but you know what I'm saying. Now, I've grown to like the game over the course of this review, but it took me probably a good 20 to 30 games to finally get the hang of it, and finally have my first victory. Most aren't going to want to go through that, and again, the port in itself isn't really bad. You can take note that, yeah, they added 2 hit or miss parts, and there's some changes to the map movements and turn-based stuff, but again, it's a good port. Obviously, graphics took a hit, but it's still cool that NES pulled this off, as again, PC to NES conversions were not really a good idea, often having little novelty at best. I mean, try playing King's Quest for more than 5 fucking minutes and you know what I'm saying. It's fucking terrible, and at least this is decent and admirable for the time. I mean, we're not talking Dragon's Lair to Dragon's Lair here. The game is still intact and somewhat fun if you know what to do, but it's really not worth learning the quirks and going through the motions, and that's really down the line regardless of the version. To be fair, I wasn't gaming in 1896, so I'm not meaning to like shit on people's fond memories, as I know some people still remember this game or have fond memories for it, and that's cool. I mean, it is a classic, I'll give it that, and I'll definitely give the game credit for its influence in doing some things first, and I do dig the music, but at the end of the day, the original version of the game, regardless of the platform, hasn't aged well, much less the NES version. I just wouldn't recommend it. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.